Welcome to Beyond Business Limits podcast. My name is Samuel Petko and I'm your host. I'm a business owner and a business investor, and through my two companies, Scale Up Outsourcing Limited and Prosperitas Investment Limited, I bring resources and solutions to those who want to accelerate their growth. If you want to see our future videos and learn about how to run a successful business, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Today, I am very pleased to introduce Ross Tomkins, who I have known for some time. We met probably sometime last year in Dubai, and since then we are in regular contact. Based on his LinkedIn profile, he's an investor, author, men's health advocate, business mentor, and board advisor. But I will leave Ross to introduce himself because there is more to it. So, hi Ross, how are you today?
I'm very good. Thanks very much for asking, Sam, and for inviting me on today. I'm not quite sure where you want me to start.
Yeah, I'm very pleased that you find some time after your journeys abroad. So you are back in the UK now.
I am. Yeah, I got back on Friday, and now we're recording this on the Tuesday.
Okay, good. So thank you. Yeah, so I did a short introduction. If you can tell us and the viewers what you actually do, because as I mentioned on your LinkedIn, you feature few activities or roles. How would you present yourself if you have 20 or 30 seconds?
Yeah, I mean, so that is a really succinct way of summing up what I do. So, I'm a business owner. I own 6 different businesses, although I don't run any of them myself. I'm a big men's health advocate, so a lot of what you see me talk about online is about men's health, in particular hormonal health. But on top of that, I advise companies, so I sit on a couple of different boards. I've written 2 books now as well, one on business and one on men's health. So yeah, that's a pretty succinct way of describing what I do.
Okay, great. So if we can start with your beginnings, when you decided to run a business, because the audience which basically is watching us, some of them are probably thinking about starting a business, some of them are already running the business. So how did you get an idea to, set up a business on your own and start?
Yeah, great question. And I think probably I have to thank my wife for that. I'm not sure if I would have started my first business if it wasn't for the belief my wife had in me. I'm a physiotherapist by background, so I started off in the NHS back in the 90s. I spent a very short time in the NHS, about 18 months, and I realised that I couldn't spend as much time as I wanted to with my patients. That took me off into the private world. But after a couple of years there, I was getting a little disheartened or a little disgruntled, not quite being able to do things the way I wanted to do things. And it was really my wife, Joanne, that said, go and do this yourself. You can do this. So without her belief, I probably would never have gotten started. But I did back in 2006. Now I started my first business, which was me, a portable bed that I used to carry around to people's houses or to people's places of work. And I used to treat them in their environment.
I see. Okay. So I understand that you didn't have
Mhm.
big overheads because you said you were traveling to see clients.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you were very careful about at the beginning, or what you can say were the mistakes you made and you wouldn't like to repeat them again if someone asks you for an advice.
I'm not sure if I did make any mistakes early on, actually. I had the support of my other half, which was great. She was in the corporate world, so she had some knowledge of business. And I had a very supportive group around me. So one thing that I always advise people when they're talking about starting a business is exactly what I did. And I didn't leave my employment to start full time on my own. I spoke to my current employer, told them my intentions, and they let me drop down to 3 days. So I started doing 2 days a week, building things up. And then as I got busier, I dropped another day. And then when I had 3 days full time, I then left my full-time employment. And I think that's a really solid plan for anyone who is thinking of starting a business, because if you go all in, particularly like I did back then and had a young family, there's so much pressure on that person to do well and to make it a success. I think it's easy to go wrong. Whereas I had the support of my current employer, had the support of my other half, and we just slowly built up. So I don't think if I went back, I would do it any differently.
I see. Okay. So you were very mindful of keeping the regular job and having the regular income and basically trialing the business,
Yeah.
not
Uh,
jumping straight to business.
Yeah, I think if people have got money pressures, financial pressures, they make
Mhm.
different decisions than if they are solvent. So, my wife was still working, that was a big thing. I was still working part-time, and that allowed me just to give my best to my clients. And it was giving my best to my clients that then allowed that business to spread. It spread through word of mouth. This guy, he really cares. He comes to your house or he comes to your office. And that made a really big difference. But as you pointed out as well, it also meant that my overheads were next to none. It was really just petrol to drive around. That was the main overhead.
Okay, sounds good. So in 2006, how did you acquire clients? What was your experience with that?
So, prior to starting the business, I had started to think about how to grow companies. So, when I first started, I did what most people do, and they join loads of networking groups. And I went to all the networking groups and told them about, physiotherapy and gave out my cards. And pretty quickly, I realized that that wasn't going to be a very good strong business case or business plan. And I realized that marketing was actually a far more important skill for a physiotherapist to have than physiotherapy knowledge, because you could be the best physiotherapist in the world, but if nobody knew who you were, nobody was going to come to your clinic. So I grew it through Facebook ads, through Google pay-per-click, and through social media. So that was how we did it.
Okay, and were you managing it on your own, or did you get some support, third-party service provider?
All outsourced. So I've always been a very big fan of mentors, mentorship, master classes. Basically, someone very long time ago sort of said, if you can learn from somebody else's mistakes, you can collapse time. So, invest in yourself, get the right mentor, growth or plan to success. And one of the first mentors I had, he said something to me which has always stuck, and I've mentioned this many, many times over the years. But he said essentially in all businesses, you have £10 tasks, £100 tasks, and £1,000 tasks. Doesn't matter what the business is, doesn't matter how big the business is, you can break it down into those three areas. And the £10 tasks are all of the admin type things. The £100 tasks are the finances and the sales. And the £1,000 tasks are the things that really change a business. Mergers, acquisitions, strategic partnerships, talking to financiers, funders, bankers, accountants, corporate finance houses, private equity, venture capitalism. That's the level where eventually you want to get to. And what my mentor said was, as soon as you can outsource the £10 tasks, either by outsourcing to perhaps some virtual system or by employing someone, you should do that, because it means you can move up and concentrate on the 100 and the 1,000. And then when your business can support it, as soon as it can support it, then pay for somebody else to do the £100 tasks. So you're only doing £1,000 tasks. And that's what we did. So initially, I would do the Facebook ads, but very quickly, we just brought somebody else in to do that. And it's been outsourced ever since.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about those, to put the tasks into different columns. And that's what I talk about with a lot of potential clients who don't understand the power of outsourcing and the power of delegation. So it's usually the solopreneurs and self-employed people who want to do everything on their own. But yes, if you allocate too much time on tasks which can be delegated, you don't have time to actually run or expand your business. I have quite often these type of conversations. And for example, people who do sales. So we support them through scale-up outsourcing because they do sales, they do phone calls, but they don't need to sit on every phone call or on every meeting. So what we do, we pre-qualify the leads through our virtual assistants or telemarketers. And then they can focus on those £100 or £1,000 tasks. So it's definitely something which businesses can benefit from. And also it's interesting what you said about your mentor. I have very different experience because when we were starting our education business, even to this day, education sector, it's quite competitive. I would say. So with my partner, because she's the teacher, so we set up a language school in 2011, and that's how we started. But there was no one to speak to, because all the other businesses there were competitors and they didn't want to share anything. And the business was quite unique. So you couldn't really find someone who has experience. You could find business mentors who have never run a language school. So they didn't really appeal to me. But yeah, at the beginning, it was quite difficult because there was no one to ask.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think even to this day, when we are sourcing funding for a training provider, it's still, everybody treats everyone as a competitor. So we will see what will happen with the new government.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it'll become more collaborative.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's about collaboration and becoming part of larger group. People can explore the synergies and can benefit from resources or shared resources and synergies. Okay, going back to your journey. So your business, it was going well. What was the next stage? So you have grown your clientele. I assume you left your job.
Yeah. So it just continued to grow. So it was me for the first few years. And like many business owners, I was just trading time for money. So, as at its busiest, I was leaving the house at 6 in the morning and getting home at 10 at night, seeing 30 patients in a day, one every 20 minutes. So I went back to what I didn't want to do in the NHS, which was see people quickly. But I was doing that in my clinic as it was growing. And eventually got to the point where we needed to start hiring other people. And we did that by subcontracting. So at one point we had 35 physiotherapists working for us, and half of those were subcontractors, perhaps even a few more than half. And that's how we grew. We grew through this subcontracting model. So we would win work in various businesses around the country, and then we would drop somebody in there for a day a week, 2 days a week, and half a day a week. And then we would charge a percentage on top of that fee to the business. And that's how we grew. So as I say, we grew up to 35 members of staff. That was the next phase. My wife eventually came to work with us as well. So she took over as our operations manager, and she got all of those things that were just in my head out onto paper.
I see. Yeah, this is the part I didn't know about your business, because usually you are in the forums and platforms where you discuss the mergers and acquisitions. But yeah, I didn't know about this part of your journey. Okay, so the business has grown into the team of 35. So what the journey taught you? What new lessons or new skills have you had to acquire running such company?
So the biggest lesson I had during that time was I had a really good hard look at myself to work out what I was good at. And again, this is something I see a lot in small businesses, because the person who starts a business is rarely the person that will scale it. Because if you are a startup person, if you've got that energy, then you probably don't have the staying power to put that into a 5 million, 10 million or 50 million business. And they're just at odds with each other. So I realized that I was a good strategist. I was good at inspiring people and motivating people, but I wasn't very good at the day-to-day running of things, which made me really bad managing director. So as soon as I realized that, and we started hiring people better than me in key positions, the business really sort of took off from there. So one bit of advice I give to people now is to ask really hard questions of yourself. Are you the right person to grow this? The person that takes a business to £1 million in revenue probably isn't the right person to take it to 5 or 10 or 50. And you will need different iterations. Same as, there might be your accountant that gets you to your first £500,000. Probably isn't the accountant that you'll need when you're at 5. Definitely isn't the accountant you're gonna have when you get to 50, because they different skill sets involved. So that was the biggest lesson for me during that time.
Actually, we recorded a previous podcast with Steve Rooms, so who is also very successful in accounting and mergers and acquisitions, and he explains this journey as well, what the accountants do and what to be mindful of when choosing accountant. So yeah, it's a good point. So in that senior level, what were the positions you hired?
So we hired a clinical manager, we hired an operations manager, we hired HR, and we hired marketing, and then later finance. So they were the people that surrounded me, and I sort of moved more into, I guess you'd call it a CEO role, although I called it a KPI role, key person of influence, because I don't like the term CEO.
I see. Okay. And how long were you running the business until you decided to go into mergers and acquisitions?
We started to go into mergers and acquisitions in 2017. So it took 10 years for us to get to that point. And then I had this idea of growing an ecosystem of interdependent companies where we could buy other physio companies, we could buy medical supplies companies, we could buy health and safety companies, and just provide a bigger service than we currently were. So that was 2017.
Okay. So what led you to it? Why have you decided to suddenly, you've been running one business up to that point? What changed?
So it was just knowledge, really. So I had realized early on that I needed to understand marketing in order for our business to grow. Those marketing courses and knowledge that I was picking up soon became business focused, so business focused marketing. And then as I learned more about how to scale companies through marketing, the logical progression was how could you scale faster? And that led me on to learning about mergers and acquisitions. So it all felt quite natural, quite organic. And I just sort of rolled with it, I guess.
So you are still currently involved in some way in your first business?
No, we sold that 3 years ago now. So we sold that to one of our clients, somebody we worked with, and then just focused on the other businesses that we'd acquired up until that point.
Okay. So what was the state of that business when you sold it? Because so you mentioned you had 35 people working within the team, plus the senior level. Also your wife was in the operations, yes. So what was the pre-sale situation like in the business?
So we'd scaled back quite considerably. So one of the catalysts for us to move into M&A was we lost our largest contract with Therapy Direct, we were a contractor to Amazon. So over half of our staff were actually just in Amazon sites around the UK. So when we lost that contract, we were then sort of forced to start thinking a little bit differently. That was the catalyst for M&A, as I mentioned. So we acquired 2 other physio practices quite quickly, close to us in the northeast. So we had 3 centres. So we scaled back our team, and that's the entity that we sold. So we sold 3 clinics, all in the northeast, to somebody that already had I think they had 14 clinics at the time. All of the staff went with them who were with us, apart from my wife. She did a 6-month handover, and then it was pretty straightforward because it was another physiotherapy practice very similar to our own, multi-site. They were more focused on the private sector, whereas we were more occupational health. So it was a good fit for them.
I see. Okay, that's an interesting journey. Again, that's something I didn't know because I think not many people ask you these questions, do they?
Most people are more interested, yeah, on what have we done since, but it's nice
Yeah,
to go back over where we've been,
yes.
where we've come from.
Okay. So that was that point you sold those 3 clinics. So at that point, you already had an eye on something else, or you were in that transition period where you were thinking about acquiring more businesses, or what was that point in time?
So by then, I think we'd already acquired maybe 5 businesses by the time we sold Therapy Direct. We've acquired 16 over the last 5 years. So I think, yeah, we're probably at 5 or 6 when we sold Therapy Direct. So we already owned a medical supplies and pharmaceuticals business. We owned 2 different domiciliary care companies probably by then. We've got 4 now. We bought and sold a property business. Yeah, so we didn't sell it and then have nothing to go to. We already had businesses that were in operation.
Okay, so you became that KPI person quite early, even during the time you had your own business. So you detached yourself and started to look for other opportunities.
Yeah, I hadn't, I mean, when we sold, I hadn't actually treated anyone for probably about 3 years. So I wasn't actually a physiotherapist anymore. I was focused more on looking at growth through acquisition. So I
Mhm.
didn't have to do any handover, even a day handover when we sold, because I'd already extricated myself from the business.
Okay, that's good. So is this an advice you would give even to people who are not thinking of selling to basically extract themselves from the day-to-day operation?
100%. I mean, a really powerful question that any business owner should ask themselves is how long can they go on holiday for without anything happening to the business? And the answer should be 6 months. You should be able to take most of the year off, and your business should still grow in your absence. most business owners, when you ask that question, will be like, well, there'll be nothing to come back to. Yeah, and that means that they're too involved in the business. And particularly, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There are different types of business out there. One type of business, is the lifestyle business. You're likely going to be chained to that. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad. It can give you a wonderful lifestyle, but it does mean you're probably not going to have a 6-month holiday. Then you have scalable companies. Scalable companies are easier to sell. So if you are mindful of an exit at some point in the future, you want to be in a scalable company, not a lifestyle company. And a scalable company should be not reliant on the owner, of the majority shareholder. They should be able to go on holiday for 6 months, and the business should continue to grow in their absence. That's a really powerful question that you should ask yourself.
Yeah, I think many people, especially with my mergers and acquisitions activities, when I speak to business owners, by them being able to book the next meeting, it shows me how busy they are with their business.
Yeah.
And in one sentence, they say, yeah, it can run by itself. We have the key people there, but then, okay, next meeting, maybe in 2 months' time, because we have this and that and that. And so it shows how busy they are, probably 24/7 working in the business, but they are portraying a different picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's quite common.
I listened to someone from our community, and the person said, if the business owner works more than 1 hour a week, it's a distressed business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's how they treat it when they talk to the business owners.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite interesting. Okay, so now you are quite involved, and anyone who follows you can see that you put a lot of content on LinkedIn and maybe other social media about health.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the companies you are involved in and what they do and why you became an advocate for men's health?
Yeah, so most of our businesses still have a health angle. And I think that comes down to me as a person, and there are lots of people out there and they say, you can run any business, but I think you've got to have a genuine passion for what you do, because it makes it easy to get up on those cold, dark mornings, or perhaps when you're tired. You've got to have a powerful reason. And for me, I've always loved health. As a physiotherapist, it was what I did for many years. So now we own a medical supplies and pharmaceuticals business. We own a medical device company. We own 4 domiciliary care companies. We've got a health and safety business. But we have our men's health company as well. And although I'm not out there putting my hands on people anymore, and if you come in to see me and you've got a bad knee because you've been running and I fix it, I don't do that anymore. But through a ripple effect, I'm helping thousands of people every single day through the different businesses. So whether we sell a stethoscope to a doctor to listen to someone's chest in hospital, whether we sell a microscope into a oncology center that's helping to cure cancer, whether we sell testosterone replacement therapy to a middle-aged man who becomes a better father, all these different things that we're now able to do on a daily basis. So I reframed my thinking to, I need to put my hands on someone as a physiotherapist to get them better, to through our business activities I can help way more people. The men's health side of things is more of a personal thing. So I went through the menopause in my early 30s. Now, in men, it's called the andropause, but most people haven't heard of that, so male menopause is often used. And the symptoms are low mood, low energy, low libido, weight gain, brain fog, aches and pains. You just can't be bothered. So it's like your mojo got up and went. And I had, unfortunately, the typical response in the NHS, which is they don't really understand. They told me I was depressed, there was nothing wrong with me. That led me on to discover this world of men's hormones, which I explored for 8 years to heal myself, until eventually then decided to start another business. So Men's Alphagenics is a startup, 2.5 years old now, where we are helping men on a daily basis. And a lot of what I say online, as you mentioned, is health related, and much of it is skewed towards men's health as well.
So you started Alphagenics. So what does the company do?
We sell drugs to middle-aged men.
Okay.
Legally. So we sell hormone replacement therapy to men who need it. Now, up until recently, and with the world wasn't really aware of this, but 40% of over 40-year-old men likely have low testosterone, and 20% of 15 to 39-year-old men have low testosterone. So when you add all that up, it's about 1 in 4 men all over the world could benefit from improving and optimizing their hormones. So we sell hormone replacement therapy, or testosterone replacement therapy as it is in men, to men who have symptoms.
Okay. I assume you already knew a lot about this problematic because you mentioned that you were studying it for previous years and
Yeah, I've been taking it for 8 years. So,
okay.
I've been on hormone replacement therapy for a decade now. So I've seen how it's changed my life. I've become a better parent, a better husband, a better businessman, a better person. I am stronger, fitter, healthier, with less body fat, greater lean muscle, better clarity of thought. I'm literally better in every way at almost 47 than I was at 27. So, I'd learned a lot over the years before we started our business.
Okay. And did you see it as a gap in the market? So going back to the
Yeah.
business type of questions, so is it because you couldn't find the solutions available in the market?
Yeah, yes and no. So there were solutions available. There is a massive gap in the market. America are 10 years ahead of us. In this country,
Mhm.
there's only, you can count on two hands the providers in the UK. And I would say you can count on one hand the providers that are any good. So it's a very small area, definitely a big opportunity that I saw. So I thought, well, if I can combine my business knowledge with this personal knowledge that I've accrued over the last decade, I think we can make a real big difference to people's lives. So that's what we set out to do.
Okay. So is it also producing the drugs? Is it the manufacturing side or?
No, so we're just a service. So we
Mhm.
provide the blood testing, we provide the doctor's appointments, and then we have a pharmacy that prescribes the medication.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it's a service business.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Because again, from the posts, sometimes it's not obvious. And I do follow quite a lot what you post. So, but until now, I didn't exactly know what the business is doing.
Mhm.
Okay, that's interesting. So, what's next for you?
What's next is just continue growing. I mean, we set a target to do 6 acquisitions this year. We've done one so far. We've just had another one agreed today, and we've got two more that are about to be signed heads of terms, I think, both in this country and in America. So, like I said, the goal was to do six. I can definitely see where four of those are coming from, but like you, we've got a number of other conversations ongoing. For Alphagenics, we want to continue growing that nationally and internationally. So that part of that will be the team, grows as well as we support the men that we're helping, really. So it's just more growth. That's what I enjoy.
Okay. And as you are talking about health and the work-life balance, so when you already manage or you have the companies in your portfolio, so how do you structure and organize your time? Because I think that's very important from an early stage, as we were talking about self-employed people, as solopreneurs, and now you are in the position where you manage a portfolio. So what would be your advice?
Uh, my advice would be to surround yourself with great people. So I'm really lucky, I have very little day to day to do in any of my businesses. We've got wonderful senior teams in all the businesses. I have a board meeting once a month for a couple of the businesses. Alphagenics, I'm a little bit more involved, so I might do something in that every day. But ultimately, the best advice is surround yourself with great people. It just makes life easier. So you can get that work-life balance right. I mean, we were talking a bit before you pressed record, and as you've said, I go on holiday every month. That's part of who we are as a family. We want to give those experiences to our family. Most of it is with my wife and kids, but not always, because we have different activities that we like to do as well. So some of it will just be with myself, some of it's with part of the family, but not all the family. Sometimes it'll be with a friend instead, but we do try and go away every month to have that balance between working hard when we're here and then going away and experiencing different places.
Okay. Yeah, that's is that the lifestyle you were always planning to have, or is there anything you can improve?
I've always loved traveling. It's always been a big part of who I am. So myself and my wife have been together 20 years now. Before I met her, I would work for 3 months, travel for two, work for 6 months, travel for one. And it was sort of a big part of what I've always enjoyed. So now I've been able to create it with work as well. That's really good.
Okay, sounds good. So before we finish, I wanted to touch upon your mentoring because you are a business mentor and you help other people and business owners to grow. We have different perspectives and different skill sets. mindset. For example, I try to look at the business and help the business owners from the perspective of an accountant, which is my profession. And then I try to find the solutions to their problems through my companies. So how your mentoring works and what you actually do when people are interested in working with you?
Yeah, great question. So there's 27 people in my mentorship group at the moment. It's all about how to scale a company. So what do you need to scale a company? And a lot of it isn't the mechanics of it. Yes, you need an accountant, and yes, you need outsourcing maybe is at a certain point. But it's more to do with who you are to start with. So it's about your health. Big part of it is mindset. So if you ask any of those 27 people what the biggest changes have been since they joined, almost all of them will say to a team mindset. I didn't realize what I was truly capable of until we joined this group. And then after that, we talk a lot about the different structures and methodologies to grow, because a lot of people think you can only grow through marketing, but we know that's not the case. Strategic partnerships are massive. Tender opportunities are huge. Mergers and acquisitions might be right for you. So my mentorship is a little more holistic than others. I'm not just saying you just got to do M&A or you've just got to do strategic partnership. It's actually, how do we look at you as a person? Where are you right now? And how can we get you to where you need to be? So do we need to focus on mindset first? Do we need to focus on your discipline, your habits, and your health first? Do you need to actually just be introduced to someone that can help you raise finance? All of these different things have come into my program. But yeah, great question. Thanks for asking.
Good. Yeah, I know it's quite useful and helpful to have such people like you in the network. And I wasn't like that in the past, because when we were running the education business in the early years, I was very focused on operations. I didn't even do any networking, or I didn't even have LinkedIn. So, and that probably after pandemic, I realized if we really want to grow, or I want to grow personally, it's not about doing the job all the time and be in the business all the time. So yeah, I think what you are bringing to others, the value, and what you are teaching or showing people, it's very helpful.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
Good. So I think you mentioned you need to jump on some other meeting. So yeah, thank you very much for coming along for this podcast. And yeah, so whoever is watching and interested in working with me or Ross, we will put the hyperlinks in the comment section and in the descriptions, so you can find out more about what our businesses do and what Ross does with his mentoring and his businesses. So thank you again for joining us today, and I look forward for the next episode.
Thanks, Sam. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Have a brilliant day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.